Hello everybody, in today's video what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover what you have to do if you don't have footings in the front of your garage. I'm going to talk about all the steps that you need to take. I'm also going to share with you guys the things that your contractor has to do to pass all the inspections. This is probably one of the toughest things that you have to do, and today you're going to find out all the little details about it. So get ready, let's go. Now, footings is a big part of the ADU. You need them. They're going to be called out in your plans. So what that means is that when you have your first inspection with the city inspector, he'll look at your plans, he'll see what kind of footings that you have, and your garage has to meet what the plans say. I was very lucky in a way that my property had the footings all the way around, so I didn't run into this problem. Not everybody is going to be as lucky as I am, and for the people that are going to dig on the side of their property and see that you have footings on one side but not on the other, this video is going to cover what you have to do in order to overcome that obstacle. Now, this video is from my point of view. There's going to be contractors, there's going to be people who may look at this video and say, no, that's not how it's done. I've been doing this for 20 years and this is how you do it. That's perfectly fine. I'm just explaining it from my point of view. I'm not explaining this as a contractor's point of view, inspector's point of view. I'm just documenting what the process is. So if there's a home builder or a contractor who is going to go into the comments and say, that guy's wrong, this is how you do it, that's perfectly fine. That contractor is probably right and I'm probably wrong because, once again, I'm not a contractor. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Before I move on with the video, just remember, I'm a realtor. I help people buy and sell houses. If you know somebody who wants to buy a property, pass on my number. If you know somebody who wants to sell a house, let them know. On average, I can help them save about $6,000 if they list with me. The very first thing you want to do is go watch the footings video. That's going to be very helpful. I think it's my second or third video. It's very easy to find. And go to the side of your house, start digging, see if you have footings. If you don't have footings, then the rest of the video is going to be very helpful. The first thing your contractor is going to do is he's going to open up a section of about 12 inches wide on the front of the garage where the door used to be, and either 12 inches or 24 inches deep, depending on what your plans call for. All the cities are different. Some cities call for 12, some cities call for 24. I'm at another property and this location already passed the epoxy inspection, and the city inspector already gave them the okay to pour the concrete. So right before they do that, I'm going to walk you through what the location looks like. And if your ADU looks like this, you're going to pass all the inspections. This is very, very important. You should not, or your contractor should not pour the concrete without passing a special epoxy inspection. You need this inspection to get the okay from the city inspector to pour the concrete. This location has already passed the inspection, so you should get a good idea of what your project should look like once it's done. This camera is a bit shaky, so the video is not going to be as stable as I want it to be. But as you can see over here, this is the front of the garage, and the contractor opened up a section here that's 12 inches wide, and I believe the plans call for a 24-inch footing. As you can see right here, this is where they drilled in to install the rebar, and then you have the epoxy. The epoxy inspector was here when they were installing the rebar and the epoxy. So this is what your project should look like after you pass the epoxy inspection. And when you call your city inspector, if the city inspector looks at all these things, he will give you the okay to start pouring the concrete. So this is a project done right. They followed all the steps. They passed all the inspections, and this is the finished product. I believe tomorrow or the day after they're going to come back and start pouring the concrete, and then they're going to call for another inspection. Now, what the epoxy city inspector will be looking for is he's going to inspect that whoever is doing the project has drilled into the existing footing the correct amount of depth. Most of the time it's about 6 inches. It could be different from plans to plans or city to city, but he wants to make sure that they've drilled about 6 inches deep into the current footing. Next, he wants to make sure that whoever's doing the project is using the correct type of rebar. I'm not going to go into sizes, into what type of rebar they should be using. And lastly, what he's going to do, he's going to check the consistency of the epoxy. If the epoxy is not mixed well, you're not going to pass the inspection. So whoever's doing your project has to know how to follow all these steps one at a time. If one of those steps is not done properly, you won't pass the epoxy inspection. Now, the epoxy inspection is a private inspector. We're not even talking about the city inspector. This is just the epoxy inspection. If everything is done properly, they've drilled the correct depth, they have the right type of rebar, the epoxy is mixed well. Most of the time, the epoxy inspector would want to witness whoever's doing the work, basically installing the epoxy into the hole. They want to make sure that they install enough epoxy, they put in the rebar, and then if everything is done right, you pass the inspection. When you pass the inspection, we'll issue that homeowner a certificate. That certificate is signed by. Once you have that in your hands, you can call your city inspector to go to your property and check that the work has been done right. Right after that, he'll give you the okay to start putting in the concrete and call it a day. So there's a lot of steps to follow. Make sure that whoever you're hiring has the experience with this type of work. Don't do it as a DIY project. Get the professional to do it for you. There's 2 companies on the website. If you want somebody to do this type of work for you, go to the website, give them a call, get an estimate. Now, the property that I'm at the beach, but the property that I was filming in has passed all the inspections, the epoxy inspection and the city inspection. So this work has been done, has been verified, and it's a good example of what your project should look like once you follow all the steps. Let's take a look. So this is what the finished product looks like. That's the footing right there. You have your anchors, you have your hold downs, and all this work already passed the inspection. So this is done properly, and this is what your property should look like after the project is completed. This is the front of the garage. As you can see, this is where the garage door used to be, and now it's on its way to becoming an ADU. They just finished the shear walls, they installed the windows, and this is the outside of the footing. You have the original one on this side, and this is all new. Right here, the homeowner watched the footings video. He excavated the side of his garage to make sure he had footings on this side, and he did. The only section where he didn't have it was the front, so they had to add it on that side. And here as well, this is the back of the ADU. He got a shovel, he started digging. He showed the inspector that he did have the required footings for this property, and everything went well. So if you don't want to be taken for a ride by a contractor who may not provide you the right information, get a shovel, start digging, find out if you have footings or not. So this is the finished product of a property that did not have footings on the front of the garage, and this is what your property should look like. This project, like I said, it already passed the inspections, so we know this is done properly, and the inspector was happy with this. Now, I wouldn't expect homeowners to do this type of work. I wouldn't do it myself, but at least you know what to expect if you run into this type of problem. When I was working on my ADU, the guy that came in and gave me an estimate for $20,000, he said I needed the footings. He never checked, he never verified. And if I had just gone along with what he said, I would have paid $20,000 and I would have had the footing already, and he would have never told me. I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. But at least now that I'm shooting these videos, people can see what to expect from their projects. And if it helps out one person out there, then, you know, that's a plus. Okay, so the magic question is, how much does all this cost? I've spoken to a few contractors and the average price is between $3,500 to $4,000 just to add footing to the front of the garage. My best advice would be to talk to a few contractors, talk to about 10, and then you would see what the prices are from one to the other. And what I would do is, if you're breaking down the project in multiple sections, so when you talk to contractors, let them know that you want them to do the footing, the framing, all the hold downs at the same time, and the shear walls. That way when they quote you, it's probably going to be an expensive bill because there's a lot of stuff put together, but the same company can do all those things at the same time and pass all the inspections. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit about the footings process. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.